Hey, there's Wisconsin Wine Guy, and I'm back with another wine purge. We're now in September, and if you're from my neck of the woods, meaning wine drinker, you are officially in wine drinking season. Some would say, well, it doesn't start till fall begins. I myself, I start September 1st. Getting my wines together for the holiday season and creating menus so I can share these wines with friends or even just have them by myself with a particular dish. But we are officially in wine drinking season for those in the industry who are familiar with that. So let's taste some wine. Now, I'm here to share with you the wine purge. Now, for those who are new, let me tell you about the wine purge. So, I have once upon a time had a huge collection of wines, varied vintages, going back to the 80s. We had some of these wines, and I was opening these wines and drinking, and some were just phenomenal, and then some just, they just didn't make the cut after so many years of sitting in the cellar, and so I now decided that I don't have as many wines as what I did have once upon a time, but I still have some older vintages. And wine purging is myself sharing these wines with you, wines that are 10 plus years old, so we can get an idea of did they age well, did they not age well, does it still taste the same, does it taste better, does it taste different, so we get to decide that, and I tell you about the wine's journey, its journey of the wine over the years of when I purchased it and how it's been cared for over time. And that some had a better life than others. Let's say that. But that being said, we're going to continue this wine purge. I have maybe like 3-4 bottles left of this wine purge, for these particular years. And again, 10 plus years back. So 2025 going back 10 plus years wines, and I've done some 19s, 18s, 16s, 10s, 12s, 11s, and so we're going to look at today's wine purge and see how it worked. So now you can already see the wines, so I'm going to show you the wines. But there's a reason why I have these two wines, and if you're familiar with these two wines, then you know the connection that they have. And I wish I had the third wine that would really bring it all together, so I'll tell you what that one is. So today's wines, and I'm not going to open them both because each purge wine should stand alone. But one gets opened today and the other on the next purge. So, Earthquake Zinfandel. Who doesn't know Earthquake Zinfandel, right? If you're an old school wine drinker like I have been, you know Earthquake Zinfandel. We're going to talk about that. And Petite Petite you'll see on the market now. Both of these are going to be 2005 vintages. 2005 vintages, 19 years old. And I feel like I should just sit on them till year 20 and taste them. But you know what? I'm getting older. The wines may not outlive me. So I'm going to share them and drink them with you. So now we're going to be tasting in this episode of the Wine Purge is going to be the Earthquake Zinfandel. So I'm going to leave the Petite up here. Now, what these wines have in common, they're both Michael and David Philip wines. Okay, the Philip family, Michael and David. The Petite comes from the Freak Show line of wines, because they have the Cabernet, the Red, Blend, the Chardonnay. So all the labels are colorful, circus, different things on them, so that's the whole Freak Show line. When I get to the Michael and David wine and purge that one, I'll tell you more about it. But we're going to be doing the Zinfandel today, Earthquake Zinfandel. Now, this is the old school Earthquake Zinfandel label. Again, this is vintage 2005. And here's the thing about Zinfandels. Now, there was a time, when Merlot was the grape that everyone was going nuts over. Then Cabernet, come in and people just going nuts over the Cabernets. But there was a period when we go through like the mid 90s to the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s, Zinfandel had its moment. Okay, and those who've been drinking wine for as long as I have know exactly what I'm talking about. Zinfandel had its moment. In fact, Zinfandel had such a moment that Cabernet was kind of feeling the pressure. Now, when I talk about this Zinfandel moment, we are talking about that period of alcohol levels being at 14%, 14.5%. 15%, 16%. I mean, the alcohol levels were just insane at that time, especially for the Zinfandels. And the Zinfandels, some of the best Zinfandels, if not the best, were coming out of Lodi, California. You know, where you get that rich, robust, juicy fruit, big, bold, you know, spicy, sometimes jammy Zinfandels coming out of that region. You know, so that was that was its moment, you know, if I recall. The mid-90s to the early to mid-2000s, Zinfandel was taking over. And again, so much so, Syrahs, you know, the alcohol in Syrahs started getting bigger. Alcohols in Cabernets started getting bigger. You know, so everybody was trying to keep up with the Zinfandel, and lots of people, we got one here. This has been around for a long time. We got another one here that we're going to have a crumbled cork. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Let's just do it. You know, that's been hanging out for a while. I got my strainer, I got my Hades corker, but we see how much of this cork we can get out of here before we pour the wine. Mine. Now, I have another tool that I'm not going to leave the video to go get it to slide that cork out, but we're going to see what we can do in getting some of this cork out slowly, so that we can taste. I can smell the juice in this bottle already. Oh my God, it smells phenomenal. Wow. So this is gonna be nice. So far on the nose, it has held up. Woohoo! Digging that cork out, baby. And this is what the wine purge is about, you know. And this wine has spent a lot of years on its side, okay? So it laid down. Now, there's a couple of schools of thought, you know, on laying down a wine with a natural cork. You know, you can lay it down and it keeps the cork moist so that it keeps the cork kind of swollen to keep the air out, you know, but there's a couple of schools there, you know, because you run into something like this if the cork is getting too moist over a period of so many years, all right? But if you are, in my opinion, if you're having a steady temperature, balanced humidity, you can possibly get away with letting that bottle stand up. Okay, and here's the bottom part. Woo! That was tough. I'm getting a lot better at this compared to those first purges, you know, when that cork just disintegrated in the bottle. But here it is. You can't see the mess on my table, but here it is. But there's that cork. Get a look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Wow, that smells phenomenal. So now, back to this whole thing with Zinfandel. So Zinfandels, you know, kind of sort of changed the wine industry in the wines, you know, as we know it. You know, it had that moment, you know, it was like big, bold. I mean, it gave big and bold a whole different meaning for wine drinkers during that period. You know, and everyone was just jamming on Zinfandels, you know. It was great going with the bold, robust dishes. You know, and even just great on its own. If you wanted something that was like big and chewy, you know, some had great tannins, you know, some were just jammy. So it ran across the board. But the alcohol, 14.5%, 15%, let's just say 15%, you know, was the norm at that time. And this is coming in at, let's find, this is 15.9% alcohol. See what I tell you? 15.9% alcohol. So let's get this poured. As usual, I'm going to pour. I got my Hades corker, which is going to be filtering whatever cork I still have left in there. And I also have my strainer here to filter out some of the wine. Okay? So I'm going to taste it two ways. I'm going to taste it out of the decanter, give it a little more aeration, and then I'm going to taste it just straight poured from the bottle. Okay. Now, I don't have, you know, a lot of cork sediment in there, so that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So there's that for the glass. All right, now let's give it a nose. Let's smell that. I mean, look at that color. So color here, we have some reddish orange coloring here, going down into more garnet. Okay, so we have a lot of color drop out of this wine. Okay, 19 years on the nose. Here's what we're looking for. Is it going to smell? It smells good here, but is it going to smell funky? How much is it going to change? You know, I like to think about what it was like in that first year, you know, when I had it or when I purchased it. Now, the journey for this Zinfandel, it was a journey for most of my wines that I'm going to be purging now, is it began in the store, okay? Purchased from the store. I didn't sell this one in my store because it was sold everywhere else. All right, I tried to be unique. Began in the store, purchased, put it in my cellar, and which in my home I had a nice cellar, couple of thousand bottles of wine, and held the temperature in the summertime at around 65, in the wintertime around 55. Left there, went to the condo. Condo had a nice little storage area down in the basement, you know, built out basement. Had the temperature about 60 in the summertime, 65 in the 65 in the summertime, 60 in the wintertime. Okay, so it was pretty consistent at that point. But then after I moved out of the condo and moved into apartments, and I took the coolest spot in my apartment, 2-bedroom apartment, which is the coolest room, and stored the wines with a nice little wine rack inside the closet, which is where they stayed. There, and even today, it had an average temperature of 65, 70 degrees. Okay, so that's its journey. All right, but the key is consistency, you know, and tasting wines. When if you followed the purchase, you watched me taste some of the wines, and I'm going to be brutally honest with the wines. You know, if it sucked, if it didn't age well, I'm going to tell you. But so far, fingers crossed, so far the wines have done well, because the key, in my opinion, is always consistency on your temperatures. Now, of course, when I moved each of those times, the wines were the last thing to be moved. The absolute last, because once I moved them, they went from their current storage to the storage box to be moved, from the box to the new place into where they're going to rest. That was the move. No, let it roll on the truck for a while with everything else. The wines went by themselves. You know, no, let's let it sit in a uncontrolled temperature room until I get everything put away. As soon as the wines got to the new place, they went to their place of rest. So now, there we go. That's this wine's journey. Let's get both of these nicely aerated. Wow, I wish you could see this. There's cork crumbs all over my table. All right, here we go to the nose. Woo, baby. Man. I mean, there's a subtle sulfur dose, but you gotta let it air out though, okay? Gotta let it air out. You know, here's where you start talking about letting a wine breathe, especially an older wine, which is why typically you decant the older wines to give it more aeration, more time to breathe. Or if you're pouring out of the bottle, you know, pour it down below the shoulders, you know, to get more air in there. And you can't really see this, but I'm looking at sediment on the sides of the bottle from when it was laying on its side. I can see it. I'm gonna see if I can get a picture of that to post on one of my sites, you know, with some good lighting. But I can definitely see that sediment in the bottle, which I said earlier, you know, some of the color has officially dropped. Now, that nose here, berries, you know, typical, subtle pepper. Definitely pick up the alcohol. We're talking almost 16%. Okay, now that's from here. Now, coming out of the decanter, let's spin it right out of the decanter. Ooh, already it smells better. It has a more raisin nose or dried fruit. Oh, wow. Let's set this one here. This is going to be my decanting glass. So when we begin to taste, and then the straight from the bottle glass. So here we go. Now let's smell it now. Oh, it's much more open here. You can pick up on some of the wood notes, the spice from this barrel aging. Very well open here. You know, more full on the nose itself. Wow. Whereas this one, as usual, the glass is tight. It's more concentrated. But this is more open. Now for the taste. We do this one first. Rinse. Acidity's there. Tannins are there, but they're a lot softer than when I recall when I first had this. You definitely get that alcohol for sure. Definitely got to have something bold to curb some of the alcohol there for sure. Oh my gosh, this is a sipper. So it held its own over time. Still got great finish, and that's from the straight from the bottle. More concentrated, more focused. Let's go into the decanted one. Just as a nose, when the decanted one, again, my mouth is watering. You definitely pick up a lot more of that fruit. In fact, it even softens the alcohol a little bit. You know, coming from here, when you get more aeration, you know, into the wine itself. Now, let's see the taste. So far, structure's nice, fruit's nice, tight, loose. Okay. Definitely smooth. Wow, it held up nicely, even being tight. Decanting the wine is the best way to go because it gives you an overall complete mouthfeel. Mellows out everything that's tight from being sitting in the bottle for 19 years. Although coming straight from the bottle, still nice too. But I would definitely recommend you decant aerate this wine. The wine, in my opinion, 2005. Michael and David Earthquake Zinfandel. They've been around since 1984, but the family's been around since the early 1800s, being farmers at Phillips Farm. You know, sustainable. You know, give back to the land. You know, take care of everything. They're doing a great job there. 7 Deadly Zins was also a part of this lineup once upon a time. 7 Deadly Sins. In fact, the 2004 vintage I had and 2005 vintage were phenomenal. I wish I had kept one of those. But the vintage to come after that, you know, I got the reviews there. You can check it out. But 7 Deadly Zins is a part of that. 2018, they sold that to someone else. And they focus now on the Freak Show wines, the Earthquake wines, and some of the other specialty wines that they have in their portfolio. 6th generation now. You know, working the vineyard. The brothers are still hanging out, doing things, but you get 6th generation now working the vineyard. So there you have it. Earthquake Zinfandel. It held its own 19 years. As usual, I'm going to say, wow, I should have waited till year 20. But I'm not getting any younger. It's your Wisconsin wine guy, saying as always that your palate be the guide. Don't forget to purge some of those wines. Don't sit on them too long. See you next time when we do the next wine purge. Ciao! Well, let's get this one.